Newspapers were a very important part of Jackie's life from a young age. Growing up in his father's newsagent's shop, Jackie learned the importance of the press and how they controlled the public recollection of an event. He started clipping important stories from newspapers, putting them in a scrapbook, saving both frivolous fun pieces as well as politically serious articles. This early love of newspapers would combine with Jackie's budding work as a historian, and he would collect thousands of newspapers over the course of his life, keeping contemporary publications as well as important historical issues. The earliest newspaper Jackie collected, and one of the oldest items in the collection as a whole, is the Christmas edition of the Oxford Gazette from 1665. But Jackie's motivation for acquiring this specific edition was not just about its age. In 1665, London was racked by the Great Plague, the last massive resurgence of the bubonic plague in England. Historians estimate that in this single year, up to a quarter of the population of London perished from the plague. King Charles II and his court were so scared of this disease that he moved his court out of the pestilent air of London, first to Salisbury, and then once the plague was spotted there, out to Oxford in September 1665. Following accounts that the plague had spread to rural communities through contaminated fabric and goods, King Charles and his nobles refused to touch any item from London, including the standard news pamphlets that kept the court informed. But as the seat of government, this information was essential to Charles's court. News would need to be delivered to the court out in Oxford. By the beginning of 1666, the plague in London was subsiding, and the court moved back to London. In February 1666, the Oxford Gazette was printed in London by Thomas Newcombe of Baynard's Castle under its new title, the London Gazette, and it is still in publication today. Following the printing of the Oxford Gazette, newspapers became a much more common form of dispensing news and government actions. The first newspaper was printed in Dublin just 20 years after the Oxford Gazette. Despite the abundance of newspapers in Dublin, during the age of coffee shops in the 18th century Irish Enlightenment, Ballina would not see its first newspaper until the publication of the Ballina Impartial in 1823. Accurate to its name, the Impartial was claimed to be both sympathetic to the landlords and prioritising the interests of the average working people. By 1829, the newspaper had a distribution of over 7,000 and would stay in publication until 1835. The Ballina Herald would be founded shortly afterwards, followed in 1883 by the founding of the Western People by P. G. Smith and T. A. Welch.